Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Pregame Show brought to you by our friends over at Walk-Ons. Good morning, everybody. Let's get ready for Bucs versus Panthers, a 4:05 kickoff. So we got plenty of time to kill between now and when the Bucs take the field against the Panthers, a divisional game, another important game for the Bucs to win if they want to continue their playoff push. So we're going to break down some individual matchups this morning. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is my fellow co-host and the face that runs the place at pewterreport.com, SR Scott Reynolds. Scott, are you ready for a divisional matchup taking place this afternoon?
Yeah, it's been a while since that's happened. You go back to that game against the New Orleans Saints in New Orleans back in week 6. So they've had quite a stretch here playing AFC teams, other NFC teams, and now we're getting back into the division. It's December's here. So this is playoff football. It's playoff time. And the Buccaneers have 2 games against the Panthers remaining, 1 more game against the Saints. And so far, so good. They've been able to do a good job of catching up to the Falcons. Falcons today have a very interesting game against the LA Chargers as they come off their bye week. So this will be one of those weeks. We've seen it now potentially 3 weeks in a row. If the Falcons can lose to the Chargers, the Bucs get a win in Carolina. Tampa Bay over the last 3 weeks, including 2 bye weeks, one for the Falcons, one for the Bucs. They've gained some ground in this NFC South race. It's getting interesting.
Yeah, even though the Bucs still have to leapfrog a number of teams, whether it's the Falcons in their own division or a couple of other opponents that they've already played this season, it still does in a way feel like that the Bucs control their own destiny, which is crazy to really even fathom at this point, considering that they had that 4-game losing streak. And yes, they defeated the New York Giants, but I think today's going to be the true litmus test of, has this team turned the corner? And this week might not even be the case because it is the Carolina Panthers, and we've seen, what they've done this season. So going into this matchup, especially on the defensive side, I'm not exactly sure what Bucs team we know we're going to see just yet. Is it, hey, they took advantage of a team that kind of quit on each other in the Giants, or is it the team that was on that 4-game losing streak? We're going to learn a lot today.
You're right. That's a great point to start with, because Tampa Bay's defense only gave up a touchdown.
Yeah,
to a team that had trouble scoring, Matt, but at the same time was scoring 15 points a game. And you look at this, well, you would like to think that the Giants get at least 15 points against a Bucs defense that had been giving up over 30 points per game for the last half of the season, right? So the fact that they had a defensive takeaway inside the red zone, allowed just 1 score, 1 touchdown, that's a promising sign. We'll see if it can continue. Big difference, though, Matt, between the way that the Giants are playing right now and the Panthers are playing right now, and that 2-win Giants team and the 3-win Panthers team. This Panthers team is a lot better than what the Giants showed last week. And even though the Giants put up a pretty decent fight on Thanksgiving, they are who they are. The Panthers, though, have won, as we mentioned on Tuesday during our preview show. They won 2 games against the Saints and the Giants, and they beat that Giants team over in Munich, but that was considered a home game. Then they had the bye week. Then they came and played the Kansas City Chiefs down to the wire, 27-27 with a minute left. And Mahomes is going to Mahomes, right? He's going to get that field goal for them at the end to win it. The Chiefs have been the cardiac Chiefs this year. They've won so many close games. But, Matt, the important thing is in these last 3 games, Carolina's won 2 of them, and they played the world champions down to the wire. This is a Dave Canales team that is getting better right now in playing really good football and not afraid of the Buccaneers.
Definitely not going to be afraid of the Bucs. And yes, this Carolina Panthers team has taken on the personality of Dave Canales. Baker Mayfield has called Dave Canales a positivity bully. He really does believe that the next play is the most important play. And, it's a good mindset for the Carolina Panthers to have. Now, it's not the best scenario because they're not going to the playoffs. But in terms of teams that are rebuilding and they know they're not reaching the postseason, the Panthers are in a pretty good spot because all they have to worry about is just getting better as a team and continuing to progress the development of Bryce Young, who has looked a lot better over this little run that they've been on with the 2-game winning streak and, going toe-to-toe with the Kansas City Chiefs. So you don't want to give Bryce Young that confidence today. You want to kind of pull it out right away. Because one thing I think the Panthers do have similar with the Giants is that they can't really play from behind if it's more than like a 2-score game, or if you get to a 3-score game like it got to when the Bucs beat the Giants. I still don't think Young will be able to slice and dice and carve up the Bucs defense the way that Lamar Jackson can, or Patrick Mahomes, or some of the other top tier quarterbacks that the Bucs went up against this season, versus whatever the opposite of Murderer's Row would be with Tommy DeVito last week and Aiden O'Connell coming up with the Raiders the week after, and obviously Bryce Young today. So just another thing that we'll be looking at for this game.
Yeah, and you mentioned Bryce Young, and he's been a huge part of this turnaround because he stopped turning the ball over. 3 touchdowns, 1 interception in these last 3 games, and that's a big reason why the Panthers have some momentum heading into this game. And a loss is a loss, Matt. And we've seen the Buccaneers. We've seen some really bad Buccaneer teams over the years. Go back to when Jason Light, when they would get a win that was hard to come by during some of those lean years, the Lovie Smith years, the Dirk Cutter years. He would come home from the airports in a suit and jump in the pool, right? Because
I remember that.
Because they're 4-7 now, or whatever, right? You know what I'm saying? Like they won a game. It had been a long time since they won a game, and that's where the Panthers are right now. Like they're clinging to that moral victory. I know Dave Canales won't admit it publicly, but you have to feel good about the way you played if you're Carolina against the Chiefs in that last game. And so he's saying, guys, we're on a roll right now. 2 games with W's, and then we took the world champs down to the wire. So this is going to be a very fun, interesting game, catching a Panthers team that I think is peaking right now. And we're going to take a peek at our friends over at Walk-Ons because they have some absolutely fantastic game day specials. Make sure you head to Walk-Ons Saturdays and Sundays. That's right. Keep in mind, college football, we got some playoffs coming up, which will be fun this year for the first time to have that expanded playoff. And then, of course, there's the championship games, the conference championship games next weekend. So Saturdays, Sundays, start your game day at Walk-Ons. Pints are $4.49, 22-ounce pours $5.99, Michelob Ultra, Bud Light, and Budweiser, $5 Heineken silver ounce, 12-ounce silver cans, $5 neutral assorted flavors. Get over to Walk-Ons. Yes, it's owned by Drew Brees. Yes, he actually likes the Buccaneers. I think Drew is a closet Buccaneer fan. I'm just going to come out and say it. Why do I say that? Because he puts money in our pocket to promote his restaurants in the Tampa Bay area.
Game day at Walk-Ons is just different. And it starts with the way our teammates prep each dish from our scratch menu. No shortcuts. We are hand-cutting every single mozzarella log straight from the block. Hand-peeling, stuffing, and bacon wrapping each voodoo shrimp. Hand-carving ribeyes for our steaks and po' boys. And hand-slicing, then tossing our boneless wings and our house-made sauces. With wall-to-wall TVs and food like this, why would you want to watch anywhere else? That's game day. The Walk-Ons way.
Drew Brees likes the Bucs so much, he threw his last NFL pass to Mike Edwards, who is now back with the Buccaneers in that NFC divisional playoff game, which was a loss by the Saints, of course, and buried their hopes of getting to a Super Bowl. And, of course, propelled Tampa Bay to a Super Bowl. So we thank Drew for that. We also thank him for Walk-On's happy hour. It's the best happy hour in the Tampa Bay area. There's 3 area locations that can serve you over in Lakeland, down there by Matt, and the stadium in Midtown Tampa, up here by me in Wesley Chapel, although I'm not in Chapel today, by the Outlet Mall. And you can find out where those locations are at walkons.com. But, Matt, we're hoping for a Victory Monday tomorrow. We haven't had one in a long time. We had one last week. It was great. And we're hopeful that we can have another Victory Monday. But regardless, there will be happy hour from 3 p.m. to close. They have all-day happy hour on Tuesdays, including $5 Tito's. Wednesdays and Thursdays, 2 different happy hours, including that 9 p.m. to close, which is great if you want to watch Thursday Night Football. So make sure you get to Walk-Ons with some inflation-busting drink and food specials.
Yeah, make sure you get to Walk-Ons ASAP. Love their appetizers. And, it's a great spot to watch Bucs football, to watch the primetime games on Mondays and Thursdays. So make sure you check it out. By the way, we have a $2 super chat from Paul, a.k.a. OG Baker Bro. Thank you very much, Paul. Appreciate it as always. And he says, watch SR's trap game video. This won't be easy. Yes, you can find that on our YouTube channel, Pewter Report TV. And divisional games, and as we've seen with college football yesterday, if you watch that Ohio State-Michigan game, whether it doesn't matter if it's the NFL or college football, divisional games in the NFL and rivalry games in college football Doesn't matter what the records are. They play you close. They know you as a team.
Yep.
And this, little chess match between Todd Bowles and Dave Canales gets ramped up even more given the familiarity that Canales has with literally every single person on that Buccaneers roster.
Yeah, and he also has familiarity with Todd Bowles. And I thought the interesting thing here is, and I think Dave Canales has a little bit of an advantage just in terms of knowing the Bucs offensive personnel, some of those personal tendencies, idiosyncrasies of the offensive players. And so to me, when I look at Dave Canales and from his time with the Buccaneers, the other thing that stands out is when, he was a rookie play caller last year, and he went toe-to-toe with Todd Bowles during training camp in some of those call-it periods. And I thought that was interesting, right? That was Todd Bowles' way of saying, we're not going to have scripted practices. We're going to basically let you guys on offense try to figure out what we're doing defensively. And that really gave Canales the opportunity to call plays in a live setting. And Todd Bowles, Matt, we see him blitz a lot on first down. So this wasn't scripted. This was Dave did not know what Todd Bowles was going to do, for basically 3 weeks of training camp. And he found out on every play. And so, he had to react to that. So I think this was probably good practice for Canales to understand the play calling tendencies of Todd Bowles. Aside from watching the game film, he has that experience to draw from. Now, I will say this. If I'm Tampa Bay, I'm not necessarily scared of that. Why? For two reasons. I think Todd Bowles overall is a better coach and play caller, given his history and experience, than Dave Canales, who's really in year 2 of calling plays at the NFL level. So, and now that doesn't mean that Todd's going to win the game by any means with his defense. But I think that's an edge. The other edge that Tampa Bay has really is simply a better play caller than Liam Cohen, right? He's got more explosive offense, an offense that can put up 30 points per game. I just dropped in the chat a new Pewter Pulse video I did about how the Bucs have built yet another Super Bowl caliber offense in just 2 years. And now you've got a guy calling plays that can score 30 points per game. We saw it last week. He has scored, well, I shouldn't say just he. The offense under Liam Cohen has 6 30-point games this year, Matt. 6. Go back to 2020, first year of Tom Brady, that Super Bowl season. They only had 8 in the regular season. Go back to 2021, the best regular season in Bucs history, 13 wins. They had 10 games with 30 points out of the 17 that they played. Well, why is that important? Well, they're already at 6 now, and they got 6 games left with 4 more 30-point games. And I think we could see one today because I'm not terribly impressed with the Panthers' defense. Liam Cohen's offense will have scored 30 points or more in 10 games with just 4 more instances. That would tie the franchise record for 30-point games, which happened back in 2021.
And even with a little bit of a dip when, Chris Godwin was out for the rest of the season and Mike Evans was out, as soon as Mike comes back, lo and behold, the Bucs are back to scoring 30 points per game once again. And Liam Cohen just seems like he's in a groove. He has a rhythm going on. He feels it out there. He has a feel for, if Baker Mayfield is on for a game or maybe he's a little, dicey as he can be from time to time. He knows when the running game is fully clicking. And Canales still has a lot to learn as not just an offensive play caller, but someone that's calling the plays while also trying to be a head coach. I think times we overlook, what type of adjustment that is and how long it can take from time to time when you have a new head coach. I mean, we saw the growing pains with Canales last year as a play caller, and now even more is on top of his plate. So, Cohen just seems like almost like a Pokemon when you get to the next level, like the next character that you can get. That's what Liam Cohen is. He's the final boss. He's the guy that
that's right.
When you envision an offensive coordinator and a play caller, that's what Liam Cohen is. And he wears those badass sunglasses. He looks like a final boss. And
he does.
Now we're seeing the best version of the Bucs offense that we've seen in about 3 seasons.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Let's get to some kind of late breaking news. That's why you tune in for the Pewter Pregame show, folks. You want to find out who's playing. Our sources have told us Tristan Wirfs will be a game time decision. So that's some good news. They haven't said, as of Sunday morning, he didn't feel like going. They're going to test him in pregame warmups to see how that knee responds, how he's feeling. But there is a chance Tristan Wirfs will start at left tackle today. Again, that will be a game time decision. The other player that was listed as questionable, actually, there's two, Troy Hill, and they're still unsure about him. But the big one's Anthony Nelson, who popped up yesterday on the injury report. Not really injured, but
personal reasons,
was for personal reasons. I have confirmed that he will play today. It's good news for the Buccaneers. They're already down Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, who is downgraded from doubtful to out. So that is good news that they will at least have Anthony Nelson, who got a sack last week. And, he's a steady Eddie. I mean, say what you want about Anthony Nelson. I wouldn't want him as my starting outside linebacker, but would I want him in my rotation of 4, either in that 3rd or 4th spot? You're damn right I would, because smart player, great length at 6'7", right? He can set the edge, and he's sneaky. He'll get you one of those sack fumbles when you least expect it, Matt.
Sneaky is the proper word, because, a couple seasons ago, Anthony Nelson led the outside linebackers in sacks. Right now, he leads the outside linebackers with 3 sacks, because Yaya Diaby has 2, and so does Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. And this is the situation where you envision getting the most out of Anthony Nelson. He's a solid 3rd string, 4th string outside linebacker. And, occasionally you have to step in and start. And that's the situation with Anthony Nelson. And I love when you called him sneaky, because it's crazy how he just falls into these certain situations, like, a missed blocking assignment and Anthony Nelson has a free run at the quarterback, or the ball gets knocked loose and it just happens to land at the feet of Anthony Nelson.
That's right.
Sometimes good plays just gravitate toward the player for whatever reason. And they got to have that with Anthony Nelson. It's another good thing that he's playing as well, because I don't know how much you want to put on the plate of Chris Braswell, who, is kind of slowly coming along with his development and kind of the game-breaking plays that we want to see. There's still a long way to go, and I think he can turn into a good player. But having Nelson there, you at least know he's not going to line up out of position. He's not going to do anything out of the ordinary that could put the Bucs in a tough situation. So let's see what Anthony Nelson has. Yeah,
and they would have been in a tough situation today if Nelson hadn't gone. I'm not sure what the personal reasons are. They're personal, but when you look at that, you would have had a situation where they had a couple of years ago where they only had 3 outside linebackers that were healthy.
Yeah,
you'd have Yaya Diaby, you'd have Chris Braswell, as you mentioned, and then you put on the game day roster, the active roster today, Jose Ramirez, right, and you'd be down to 3. And we've seen Logan Hall play some snaps at the outside linebacker spot, really as a defensive end. Same thing with Kalijah Kancey. So you can get through that in a pinch, but you don't want to go into a game with only 3 outside linebackers. You want to have 4. Right. And then if you're down to 3, then you can do some things in game. Kalijah Kancey, Levante David, we've seen him, on pass rushing situations.
We have
play outside linebacker where he's on the line of scrimmage, coming at the quarterback, and not really a blitz, because he's playing that outside linebacker spot rather than a blitzing inside linebacker. So Todd Bowles has some ways to navigate that if there's a player that gets injured today. But now's probably a good time to start digging into our matchups. But first, let's take a look at the spread, Matt, because the point spread for this week's Bucs game, Tampa Bay -5.5. What are your thoughts on that line, Matt?
Yeah, another situation where the Bucs are the road team and yet the favorite. You don't see that too much in the NFL, just given the parity in the league. And I'm a little surprised by this as well, given how good the Panthers have looked over the last 3 games. I thought this line, Tampa Bay still would have been a favorite, but typically there's a 3-point swing if you're the home team. You kind of get those points just based on how Vegas looks at it. So I'm surprised this isn't like Bucs -3.5 or 2.5. So I still think the Bucs will cover, but it's a little higher than I would have liked.
Yeah, I agree. You know what? Before we get to our matchups, we have
some super chats.
We have some super chats, and I saw one here too. Maybe it wasn't super chat. You're getting some props, Matty Diamonds, for going 4-0 yesterday.
Yeah, I am piping hot. I believe it was Paul, aka OG.
Okay,
Pro. But yes, I am piping hot.
So I want to give you your
college
props
football
today.
picks. Yeah. Yes, thank you. And also shout out to I did a parlay during the game live, Michigan to win when it was tied up at 10-10. I did Michigan to win and parlayed it with Syracuse. So shout out Hughes 44 to beat Miami and had a big payday. So I'm very excited about that.
Excellent. Well, let's get some of these super chats here, and then we'll roll in. And hey, listen, hats off Samuel Fisher, who says $5 super chat. Thank you, Samuel. It's me again, Scott. LFG clones, championship bound. They stormed the field last night. Good luck next time, Cyclone State. Listen, I'm happy for the Cyclones for one reason. Rocco Becht, who's from here in Wesley Chapel. I covered his dad when he was with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as a tight end. Matt, you followed him when he was a New York Jet, first round pick back in the day. Love Rocco Becht. Love him a little bit less, honestly, when he's playing my Kansas State Wildcats, but touchdowns, rushing, passing, good player. And, I will say this. Iowa State was one of two teams in college football. Vanderbilt was the other one that had never had a 10-win season. So that shows you how bad your program was, Samuel. It was terrible. But give you your props. You guys did a good job. And I'm rooting for you guys against Arizona State. I like Arizona State, too. I think they came in and walloped K-State. Dillingham's a great coach, man. He's going to get a job. He's going to get elevated here pretty quickly. Arizona State's going to have a hard time keeping him. But this should be a really good, fun Big 12 championship game. And I would expect either one of these teams to get into the playoffs and be a contender. Maybe not for the national championship, but a team that could elevate into the Final Four. So, go Clones. I'm actually rethinking, Matt, going to, because we call it Farmageddon, an Iowa State and Kansas State battle out there in the heartland. I'm rethinking going to Ireland next year because we have a hard time beating Iowa State now. I don't want to pay all that money to go across the pond.
That's true.
Just for a Guinness and watch my Kansas State Wildcats lose. So we'll have to rethink this. I'll let you know in the offseason.
In the spirit of it, you should go to an Irish bar in the Tampa area and watch
save a lot of money.
At an Irish bar. Yes,
exactly. Yep.
Let's go to the super chat from Redfish. Thank you very much for the $1.99 super chat. As they say, if we stop Chuba Hubbard, don't think we can lose. I agree with that. I think you want to make Bryce Young one-dimensional. You want to do it with like every team, but Bryce Young, a player that has struggled at times, that maybe doesn't have the top weapons that other teams have, and they're going to be missing their tight end. That's helped them this year as well. I think if you stop Chuba Hubbard, you take away the run game. We know Dave Canales doesn't use as much play action as many would prefer, so. Right. I think the Bucs can pull away in that aspect. Yeah,
3 100-yard rushing games this year for Chuba Hubbard. He's a quality back. They gave him a big-time contract extension in the offseason. And, it kind of raised some eyebrows a little bit because you're thinking, why would you want to pay all that money for a running back? But he really is the engine for this Panthers offense. Only had one 100-yard rushing game last year. That came at Tampa where he scored 2 touchdowns. And then in that Week 18 game, the Tampa Bay won 9-0 to clinch the NFC South. 83 yards, 23 carries. So he's had some good games against Tampa Bay, and hopefully that doesn't happen today for the Bucs' sake. But yes, I agree. If Chuba Hubbard gets going, this is going to be a 4-quarter battle. If they can stop him early, especially on first downs and in the first quarter, don't get him going, then the Bucs stand a much better chance.
Hubbard got that extension earlier in the year. James Conner got an extension yesterday from the Cardinals. Yeah. So good things are happening for running backs.
Yeah.
Congrats to the running backs. Easy the Great, thank you with this $4.99 super chat. Says Panthers have one of the worst rush defenses, and we are gonna keep pounding with this 4-headed monster. Contain Hubbard, and the Bucs win convincingly. Yeah. Well, that's the beauty of the Bucs fighting this run game, is that if you have a good run game going, you can essentially do whatever you want. You can go play action. You can be aggressive throwing the ball. You can keep running it until they stop it. It just gives you so many more options. When you have a creative play caller like Liam Cohen, it's music to everybody's ears.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And interesting that Liam Cohen got all 3 backs, 3 touches on the first drive last week.
Yeah.
3 catches for Bucky Irving, 3 runs each for Rashad White and Sean Tucker, who got the opening touchdown. I'm not sure that he'll do that again. We'll see how much trust he has in Sean Tucker after that goal line fumble and after the muff kick. If he kind of goes back to that running back 3 role and they really emphasize Bucky and Rashad, or if he's going to start with a similar approach and get all 3 backs involved early.
I hope that is the case, and thank you to Q's44. Congrats again on the Syracuse win yesterday over Miami with the $2 super chat. Says, Scott, we see some talk today. I do agree with you, Scott. Yeah, you did just answer that. I think it'll be either similar or maybe even less because of the fumble that Sean Tucker had. I hope that's not the case. I hope they get him involved in the same way that they did with the Giants. But again, maybe not exactly goal line, a little more, at midfield or, starting a new drive at the 20 or whatever it may be. But I do hope we see Sean Tucker. He is important to this team.
Yeah, Russ Weeks. Jesus Christ, y'all seem to talk up Bucs opponents more than our own team. You do it every week. FFS, we know what that stands for. It's the Panthers, and if we can't beat them with conviction times 2, then we don't belong near the postseason. I'm just telling you, this is not necessarily going to be an easy game, given how the Panthers are playing. I don't want to set false expectations. Now, I'm not saying the Buccaneers can't go out and get a 30-7 win again against Carolina. If they play their brand of football, and Todd Bowles is on top of his game from a defensive play calling standpoint and a game management standpoint, it can happen, because I like Liam Cohen's offense. I think it's dynamite. But this is going to be, I think, and Matt, I don't want to speak for you, but it sounds like you agree that this is going to be more of a challenge this week than it was against the Giants.
Yeah, I mean, the win over the Giants last week, you're not going to have many games in the season where you just walk all over your opponent.
Yeah.
And you're especially not going to have that 2 weeks in a row. Like, the
Right.
NFL is just too good of a league to, have that happen all the time, unless you're the Detroit Lions, but they're doing that to everybody on a weekly basis. So, again, the familiarity, Canales knowing a lot of the Bucs players, a divisional matchup.
Right.
We haven't seen the Bucs really run away in a lot of divisional games. They did against the Panthers, but even that game, the Saints, but even that game, they blew a lead. So, we're just saying it's not going to be a walk in the park in this game. That's all.
It's a must-win game, folks. It's a must-win game all the way out for the Buccaneers. But
yes,
the good news, again, this will be a key week for the Falcons too, because if they lose against a Chargers team with a better record and maybe is a better team, we'll find out today, and the Buccaneers win, this will be the 3rd week in a row where Tampa Bay has gained some ground in the NFC South and really making this division race interesting. But let's take a look at some of these interesting key matchups presented by Walk-Ons, the Sports Bistro. And it starts with a matchup that may be a little easier than it was last week against Dexter Lawrence for Graham Barton. I thought Graham Barton held his own last week.
Yeah.
Got some good wins. If you watch some of the tape, he was pancaking and steamrolling Dexter Lawrence, which is not easy to do. But more importantly, Graham Barton prevented Dexter Lawrence from getting sack number 10 on the year. Graham Barton's going up against defensive tackle Shai Tuttle. There's no Derek Brown. He suffered an injury, I think, back in week 1 and is out for the year. That's their star defensive tackle up front. He's been a thorn in the Bucs side in the run game for many years. But Tuttle is an experienced vet. He's played some in New Orleans. Now he's in Carolina. He's just kind of like a crafty guy, but he's probably the weak link up front. And if Graham Barton can have a Pro Bowl caliber dominant day, and I think that's in him, this might be the tip of the spear for the Buccaneers run game today, right up the middle behind Graham Barton.
I've been really impressed with what I've seen from Graham Barton over, the past couple of games as he continues his development. I think this is just another step along the path to continue to become a great center in this league. And he still has a very long way to go, but I love the physical nature that he's been playing with. I love that, he just seems confident when he's out there. So I'm taking Graham Barton for this match.
Me too. Give me some Graham Barton. Cade Otton, who's been a little quiet over the past 2 weeks now. He's played, a very good San Francisco 49ers defense who shut him out in the second half. And he wasn't really the featured guy in New York, because he had a couple drops as well that didn't help. But now in Carolina, they really like this inside linebacker, Trevin Wallace, who played at Kentucky. Liam Cohen knows him well. You and I liked him heading into the draft out of Kentucky. Very quick, fast, athletic linebacker, good in coverage, can also blitz. He is an athletic playmaker. And, of course, they're without Shaq Thompson, who is their old veteran, their own kind of Levante David, although not as good. But he's been on injured reserve. This is an up-and-coming guy in the NFC South that I think he was the Bucs' best bet. We had him as one of those guys that Tampa Bay liked as well. And I like Cade Otton to have some plays today, but Trevin Wallace is not going to make it easy. I'm still going to go with Cade Otton, though.
Yeah, I'll go with a push in this one. The speed of Wallace, I think, obviously plays a bigger factor than most weeks because Cade Otton is, not the quickest of tight ends. He does find a way to get open, which is great. But because of the speed of him, and also I'm still curious to see how Otton fits in terms of the hierarchy of this offense with Mike Evans coming back. Because, last week, Mike looked very solid, and we'll talk about him in a couple of players from now. But it was everybody pitching, and it wasn't just Cade Otton being like target number 2 or option number 2. It was everybody getting involved after Mike Evans. And I'm curious if that will be the case moving forward or if Auden gets back to crushing it like he has. So I'll take a push.
Yep. Our next one is right tackle Luke Gedeke versus outside linebacker Jadeveon Clowney. Clowney's never really been that kind of dominant force that everybody thought he was going to be coming out of South Carolina as the number 1 overall pick. He's had a couple of good years, still hanging around the league, had a good game against the Chiefs last week with a sack and a half, but he only has, I think, 3.5 on the year. Mm-hmm. The Panthers pass rush, remember they traded away Brian Burns, and they don't have Derek Brown, who's more of a run stuffer than a pass rusher, but he creates a lot of stuff for those outside rushers with clogging the middle and putting pressure on the pocket. But they don't really have that push, and I think that hurts an older guy like Jadeveon Clowney. So 17 sacks for the Panthers overall. Gedeke, I think, is one of the ascending right tackles in the league. I'm actually going to give Luke the day today, and I think he's going to handle Jadeveon Clowney.
Yeah, I think he'll have a great game today, Luke Gedeke I'm talking about. We've seen him match up against other better pass rushers than Jadeveon Clowney, and he's held his own. So Gedeke because of that, and also Clowney at this point of his career, and I respect what he's done, but he's better off as your second edge rusher or maybe even your third edge rusher, and relying on him to be the top guy in Carolina speaks to the issues that they've had as a pass rush this year. So the answer is Luke Gedeke all day.
Yep, I'm with you on that too, Matt. Baker Mayfield versus free safety Xavier Woods. Woods is kind of like one of those guys like Shy Tuttle. He's just been around the league.
Yeah.
He's kind of a crafty guy, knows how to make plays, really good stuffing the run, coming down in the box when called on, has 2 interceptions. Panthers are not a secondary that gets a lot of takeaways, very much like Tampa Bay. Can't buy an interception, apparently. But Baker Mayfield, I think more than half of his interceptions have come throwing the ball to safeties or in their direction. So as long as he stays turnover free, and if we want to say that botched handoff was between he and Rachaad White, then you have to go back several weeks. Baker Mayfield has not thrown an interception in 3 games. I'm going to take Baker Mayfield in this one, Matt.
Yeah, Baker, again, just kind of in a groove with Liam Cohen, like I was talking about earlier. He's been balling out. And the most important thing from that game against the Giants wasn't even just that there was no turnovers. There were no thrown balls that looked interceptable. And, Baker can run into that from time to time. I think he can just kind of control this game, build a lead, and then play within himself. And I think it'll be a good day for Baker.
Yep, I agree. Rounding out our offensive versus Panthers defense matchups, Mike Evans versus J.C. Horn. There was a time when James Bradbury was the Panthers cornerback that gave Mike Evans fits. And then really Marshawn Lattimore was that NFC South nemesis for Mike Evans. Now it's kind of J.C. Horn a little bit who's stepping into that role. Bradbury's gone. They traded away Marshawn Lattimore out of New Orleans. This is kind of the premier matchup now. And Mike really got the better of the matchup in last year's game in Tampa Bay in that rain, 170-plus yards, including a 75-yard catch and run in dramatic fashion in that 21-18 close win over Carolina. But then in Week 18, Matt, Horn actually held Mike Evans under 100 yards and had 3 pass breakups and did a much better job of covering Evans. That was a really kind of rough day for Baker Mayfield throwing the ball. There were 3 interceptions that were dropped by the Panthers in the first quarter. Tampa Bay won 9-0. Mike's still trying to get 1,000 yards. He's not had a 100-yard game yet this season, but he's had 4 in his career over Carolina, including that one last year. I'm going to trust Mike, and I think last week was kind of a stair-step game, getting back in the flow, back in the swing of things. I think Mike goes off for 100 yards today. And as good as J.C. Horn is, I think Mike Evans is going to be Mike Evans today.
Right. I like J.C. Horn, but the answer to this is Mike Evans. And I think Mike looked good last week. And we have to remember the Bucs were up by a lot, so they didn't have to use Mike as much as they really needed to, or maybe that they even expected to, just given how the game really played out. I think they'll ramp it up a little bit more with Mike. Again, not to a crazy extent where, he puts his hamstring injury into jeopardy, but Mike balls out against the Panthers. This is his team that he likes to dominate against, and I see no difference as to why he wouldn't in today's game. So going with Mike.
Speaking of dominant, the Bucs defense was dominant. Boy, we haven't said that in a while. Last week against the Giants, only 7 points. But this is going to be a very interesting game because Dave Canales, one of the first things he did, and he's really kind of maybe he's been a little bit ahead of the curve, Matt, but he's he put a lot of resources into the guard position in Carolina and went out and upgraded their offensive line from the inside out. And they've got a couple of good defense, or I should say offensive tackles in Carolina that kind of lead the way, but they've really elevated the play of their interior. Damian Lewis was brought over from Seattle. He had some experience with Canales there. And then they went out and got Robert Hunt from the Dolphins. Both of those guys are road graders in the run game. We know Dave Canales likes to run the ball, sometimes a little too much. But, man, there are – you talk about defensive tackle play. There's not a better 1-2 punch in the NFL right now than these two guys, Kalijah Kancey, Vita Vea. They can get it done stopping the run.
Yeah.
They both are on pace to get 10 sacks this year. I cannot remember the last time two defensive tackles on the same team were threatening to get 10 sacks. And you have to go back to like Brad Culpepper and Warren Sapp back in the day. So this is the juggernaut right here, Vita Vea, and then you've got the immovable object in Kalijah Kancey, who just you can't touch him. He's a ghost. He's so fast in the backfield. I like Vita and I like Kalijah in this matchup, even though the Panthers' guard position has been fortified.
Yeah, I respect what Carolina has done with the interior offensive line. And yes, they have upgraded, but we're talking about a duo that it honestly, no disrespect to the Panthers, but it doesn't matter who you put in front of Vita Vea and Kalijah Kancey. They have just been so dominant this season, and it's been an absolute treat to watch them. And that's why it hurts even more when, you start a season and Kalijah Kancey's out or Vita Vea gets banged up, because the damage they do together when they're both in the game causes fits for really anybody. And Tommy DeVito doesn't look too happy in that picture as he's getting the life squeezed out of him by Vita Vea. Is
today the day we see a thick six? Do we see Vita Vea score a touchdown today? Because he was in the goal line package. Yeah, right. Let's go to the next matchup here. Strong safety Mike Edwards, who will be starting and filling in for Jordan Whitehead. Boy, this is turning out to be one of the best waiver wire claims of all time for Jason Light. Perfect timing. Versus tight end Tommy Tremble. The Carolina Panthers have got a really talented tight end, a rookie out of Texas, Jatavion Sanders, who the Bucs like, but he's out today. Tommy Tremble, not very good, but for whatever reason has good games against the Buccaneers. You go back a couple years and that 21-3 victory against the Tom Brady led Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Carolina. And it was Tommy Tremble who actually had a touchdown, one of those three scores from PJ Walker. I know I'm bringing up some bad memories here, but he also has another touchdown in Tampa. So Tommy Tremble plays well against the Buccaneers for some reason. He is going to be the starting tight end today. How do you like this matchup between Edwards and Tommy Tremble?
I spoke to Mike in the locker room earlier this week, and he was talking about last game against the Giants where it took him a little bit to get his feel for the defense once again. But he said once he was comfortable in the game, that's where it allowed him to know when he could jump some routes a little bit or when he could be a little more aggressive than on other plays. And you saw him nearly come up with an interception guarding Malik Neighbors. It ended up being an incompletion on the play, but I could just kind of see it in his eye and his attitude, the way he was talking. He's getting an interception soon. I hope it's this game. So I'm going to take Mike Edwards because he's out there lurking and he's going to make a play sooner rather than later.
I'm with you. I'm going to take Edwards over Tremble, but for whatever reason, that cat plays good against the Buccaneers. Yeah. Continuing on here, we're taking a look at Bucs inside linebackers versus Chuba Hubbard, because these guys are going to be active today. And, we kind of, bash and throw KJ Britt under the bus. Well, they might need the run stuffing between the tackling KJ Britt today, because they're going to see at least 20 carries from Chuba Hubbard. And the other interesting thing is the Buccaneers brought up to the active roster Vi Jones. So they cut Antonio Greer. They elevated Vi Jones. So Jones now, I think, will be that platoon guy. Maybe it's J.J. Russell still, but at least they have Vi Jones, who is the more athletic. He's the fastest linebacker on Tampa Bay's roster right now, running a 4.51. So at least they have a guy that can drop in coverage and do those things on third and long situations. And, of course, Tampa Bay hopes they're in a lot of third and long rather than third and short, because Chuba Hubbard seems to find a way to pick up those first downs in third and short. So I think this is a push. I'm going to give Chuba Hubbard his respect versus Tampa Bay's linebacking core, which had a really good game against the Giants. They'll need one today.
Yeah, I don't want to steal your thunder, but I was thinking a push as well because the inside linebackers, like, are you going to get a vintage Levante game where he forces a fumble, or does
Right.
KJ Britt kind of rear its ugly head? And Chuba Hubbard's been getting it done. Again, we talked earlier about the extension that he got. I'm happy for all the running backs that are getting their due a little bit. And if Hubbard is the strength of the Panthers offense, if you're not at least considering him in the one section where the Panthers may get a win, then I don't think they'll get one in this whole chart. So
yeah,
I'll go with the push, but we'll see. I mean, the Bucs have been up and down with their run coverage, and they need to be up.
Yep, I'm with you on that. The Bucs outside linebackers, because we didn't necessarily know if Anthony Nelson would play today, but he is going to, and that's good news. Yaya Diaby, Chris Braswell, those guys are going to be counted on. No Joe Tryon-Shoyinka today. He's out with that ankle injury. Versus the Panthers tackles, and I talked about this earlier, they do have a pretty good 1-2 punch at the offensive tackle spot. That's the area that Dave Canales said, I like our guys. We're going to fix the interior. We're going to get 3 new guys up front. But Taylor Moton has been a very good right tackle for a long time in this division, and he's really solid. Then you've got their former first-round pick, Ikem Ekwonu, at the left tackle spot. He has really developed into that player that they wanted him to be. I don't know that he's certainly not like a Tristan Wirfs caliber player, but he's on par grade-wise, looking at Pro Football Focus and the statistics you can parse from offensive line play. He's up there with Taylor Moton. So they do have an effective 1-2 punch at the outside. It helps them with those outside running plays with Chuba Hubbard and also in pass protection.
Yeah, the Bucs outside linebackers are solid, but as far as getting to the quarterback, they haven't done it the way that I think we all expected. So,
agreed.
I'm still waiting for Yaya Diaby to show me something. I'm still waiting for, JTS isn't playing, but a lot of these guys to show me something. So I have to pick the Panthers offensive tackles because the Bucs outside linebackers don't get the benefit of the doubt anymore.
I agree. I'm going to take the Panthers tackles. I think these outside linebackers still struggle. Maybe Chris Braswell gets home today. He needs a little bit of a confidence boost there. And finally, Antoine Winfield Jr. versus Bryce Young. And this is going to be kind of a 1-2 punch here when it comes to Winfield, because not only can he affect this game as as somebody in coverage, and he's picked off Bryce Young before. You go back to that game against Tampa. But he can also sack Bryce Young, and that's happened before as well. So we're starting to see a little bit of vintage Antoine Winfield Jr. here. Mm-hmm. I think that Mike Edwards has kind of unleashed that a little bit, and it might be just in time because they need Winfield to really play and don that Superman cape that he's capable of against Bryce Young today.
Yeah, hopefully last game was a sign of things to come. The sack on the blitz, nearly had an interception, but Antoine seems to have some big moments against the Carolina Panthers. Of course, he famously had one of his end zone touchback forced fumble plays against Carolina, which
that's right.
Really helped out the Bucs in that game. And of course, the Bucs are at their best when Antoine Winfield Jr. is impacting the game in several ways. So, hopefully they get that today. No one was going to take Bryce Young in this matchup. So, the answer is Antoine Winfield Jr.
Yep, I'm with you on that. I think Winfield does have a game today. Hopefully it's not one of those last second, millisecond forced fumbles at the goal line. Hopefully the Panthers don't get that close to the goal line. But I'm expecting this to be somewhat of a competitive game here. I think Tampa Bay has the talent and the better coaching to pull away. Matt, I predicted the Panthers to lose today and the Bucs to continue to progress towards the playoffs. Your thoughts on the outcome of today's game?
Yeah, first off, thank you to Joel L. Rican for the $2 super chat. It says, happy game day. Go Bucs. I think this game is going to be won by the Bucs with their offense. I'm not saying it's going to necessarily be a shootout, but I think Tampa Bay gets around 28 points or hopefully that 30-point threshold. And I just don't think the Panthers offense can go shot for shot with the Buccaneers, even as bad as the Bucs pass coverage has been. I think the blitzes by Todd Bowles probably giving something to the Panthers that Dave Canales maybe hasn't seen just yet, because that's how Bowles can be. Brings in a little wrinkle on the defense to get the necessary stops for the Bucs, and their offense does the rest and pulls away.
Yep. Hughes 44. How is Tyke? He's out, unfortunately. Tyke Smith, was a concussion earlier in the season. Now it's the knee. Yeah. It's unfortunate because just as soon as we saw this dime package from Todd Bowles, where he had Christian Izzy playing the slot last week, and he had 3 safeties: Mike Edwards, Jordan Whitehead, Antoine Winfield Jr. He could play some dime. We saw that last week. Now Christian Izzy's back in the slot, playing again for Tyke Smith, who's injured. And now you probably won't see as much dime. And you probably won't see it much anyways today because of the threat of Chuba Hubbard. They're going to want to have that linebacker on the field. So you might see more Vi Jones and covers today rather than dime because of that. It's the whack-a-mole thing, Matt. We've talked about it all year. Just when Todd Bowles has one guy back in the defensive backfield, he loses another. It's just been this crazy give and take throughout the entire year. Bat W says, did SR dye his hair? No, it's just the bad lighting. I'm in an Airbnb here. I like my late father, never dyed his hair. I'm never dyeing mine. You can see I've got a little gray here in the front. It just looks a little darker than it usually does with the lighting in here. I'm up in an Airbnb up in Georgia. But no hair dye, never will. I'll go gray when I go gray, damn it.
All right. So keep that on the docket for those putting bets on.
You got questions, we'll answer them here. So that's what we do here.
That's how we roll. That's how we roll on these shows. Yeah, by the way, a later start for this game. It's going on at 4:05, and you can join myself and Adam Slavon later on this afternoon at 4:05, like I just mentioned, for the Pewter Game Day show. We do this every week. You can find it on our YouTube channel and on pewterreport.com, where we react live to every single thing going on in the game. It's a lot of fun. We obviously look at it through a Bucs lens, where sometimes the national broadcasters don't always see things in the Buccaneers' favor, so we'll have insight, certain things to look at and watch for, and we're very interactive with everybody in the chat. So I would love for you to join us today for the Pewter Game Day show at 4:05.
Yep. As AC says, can't remember the last time we had a 4 p.m. game in Carolina. I can't either. I mean, even when the schedule came out, Matt, I thought this is a little odd. You might see it if it's the Saints or the Falcons, right? But the Panthers, it's just interesting from a timing perspective. So,
plus you have Bills. You have Bills 49ers today, so nobody's going to be watching Bucs Panthers besides Bucs fans and Panthers fans.
Exactly. So, in case you're wondering, it will be white pants. I'm sorry, not white pants, white jersey, pewter pants today. That's the uniform combination. I'm hearing next week when the Bucs play the Raiders, just like it was in Super Bowl 37 back in 2002. Bucs red jerseys, pewter pants at home versus the Las Vegas Raiders. So we'll finally see that combination for the first time next week. Bucs had previously worn their red jerseys with their white pants on Monday Night Football against the Ravens, but we're going to see the red and pewter combination. It's December. They always wait till the end of the year to do that for the home games, and so I think that's on tap for next week. But make sure you join us after Pewter Game Day for the Pewter Report podcast. We'll have a post-game podcast right after Todd Bowles and Baker Mayfield speak. You can join Matt and I for our post-game analysis. We want to hear your comments, too. So bring your super chats, bring your questions and comments. We'll have a good time, and hopefully it'll be so good, we'll have a Victory Monday tomorrow at 4 o'clock.
Let's hope so. In the meantime, make sure you're following us on all of our social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram. We are at Pewter Report, and our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment below on this video as well. So that'll do it for us this morning. For Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you soon for another Pewter pregame show. Out.